Okay, for those in live stream world, you are joining yet another internal software architecture design review. This is actually part 3, maybe, of looking at image, audio, and signal processing functionality for the upcoming version of Wolfram Language. And what are we doing here today? Which things are we looking at? We'd gotten as far as speech, right?
Yeah, there are a few things from the sections above that I wanted to discuss as well.
Okay, well, let's start off with those.
Find faces. You don't. Okay, so find faces was one thing that you looked at first time. We didn't look at the third argument of it. I wanted to get your opinion on that.
Okay. So, oh boy, do I have to look in prototype or is it in the main branch?
Prototype most things.
Okay, but should I look at documentation first?
Yes.
And by the way, I want to say, I think Eric was here. Yet again, the 11.3 prototype build DocuTools thing something is going wrong with DocuTools there.
Okay.
Okay, this is the criterion. So this is working like entities, correct?
No, you don't have this up to date. Let me see. Let me see if it was find faces. Let me see if it is a find faces new or.
Okay.
No, this should be it.
Well, I just updated within minutes, so something's wrong.
Feature is there.
What's that?
It's new, Shadi, in the sense that the properties.
No, but those are the properties. That's the second argument. Shadi is talking about the third argument, the criterion argument.
The criterion, okay. No, what I wanted to talk about is that function f for criteria that can return bounding boxes for.
Are you sure the criterion should be a third argument, not a second argument? It seems a little weird to have, I mean, in an entity property setting, you know, the criterion would be, I mean, let me just do a case of this, right? So, I mean, you're saying that if I go here, you're saying that I can get, let me just have, let's get a web image search for, let's do crowds. Does that,
so that's a property, right? That's not a criteria.
This thing here, absolutely, right. Oh gosh, that's a big crowd. Okay, let's say a group of people. Okay, fine. So let's take one of these. Okay, so what you're going to say is you're saying find faces here of that, comma, and then you might say, let's just get the individual faces. So how do we do it? Image, sub-image containing the face. Isn't it containing each face?
Yes.
So why don't we say sub-images bounding box. Pixel of the face, isn't it? Of faces. In each
could be one or many. Yeah, I think.
Right. Bounding boxes returned as rectangle objects. Wouldn't that be the right way to say it?
Yeah.
Pixel area of each face. Pixel areas of each pixel sub-images containing each face.
Yep.
The position of each face given as XY. Okay, so here, wait a minute. So this is facial features. Okay, hold on. First of all here, so is it what I'm doing here, hash? What would you've clearly got a bug there with the, but what would be the way of doing this?
Hash gender equals female.
Quotes female?
Yes.
It's not an entity?
No.
Oh, great. Is this going to work?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
It has been in the prototype build for a while.
All right. So the question is whether the criterion, so this criterion is similar to something where I'm doing an entity where it's saying, you know, hash. Well, actually, it's not similar to the way that it works for. See, in the case of an entity, an implicit entity, you would be saying something like entity of city, comma, quotes population arrow. Okay, so this is a criterion. What is this criterion modeled after?
Component measurements. That was the first one we implemented.
You know, this is going to cause trouble, this gender thing equals, whatever. How are you going to deal with that? Because that gender thing is going to return entities in the future, isn't it?
It could. Yeah, also for emotion, we decided to return entities at least now.
Can it be equal to can it just be equal to, you know, such an entity? Is equal implemented for entities?
Yeah. I mean, equal.
But then why would it be a problem?
Well, so wait a second. Because if you use a string by mistake, so to speak, what's it going to do?
I think we can support the entity name as well, in addition to the entity object.
Well, but double equals is not going to return the right thing.
Ew. Something in classify.
Okay, but that's impressive that it got the faces out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if I just do that without the criterion, wonderful. Okay, so there's some bug here.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to return to this hash gender equals female, right? Because you understand that if we have, how can we support both? It seems very hard to support both the you know, hash, but both. I don't even know whether there is a an entity for female. It seems very hard to. It's just a word. You get what I'm saying? I mean, if you have hash gender equals that, I mean, the only way we could do that is by having some very bizarre thing in. It's an interesting idea.
But isn't it, you know, let's say that this facial feature returns entities, then that's how you need to write those, what the return values are for that function.
No, I understand, but I'm saying that then this wouldn't work, right?
Okay, it returns entities, yeah.
Right, so I mean here.
So if there is an incompatible change in that find facial features, or facial.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This emotion thing, right? What you do here is to say, you don't say quotes happiness, you say happiness here. Right? Which, by the way, I have no idea whether that should go. I don't even know how that defaults, and that is another thing you need to look at and communicate with somebody about. Okay, so but I wonder whether there should be an alternative way of doing this. If, you know, this is the way of doing it with a function if you want to be general, but maybe there's a way of doing it where you can just say emotion arrow happiness or emotion arrow the entity and having both of those work. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what's bugging me a little bit is that the criterion is kind of after the property. Does that bug you, or do you not care? Or do you think, is there any way of wrapping this thing?
The thing is that we can support both in the code. Do we want to document and advertise both?
Both what?
Both orders, prop first, criteria next, or the other way around.
Oh gosh, no, we definitely do not want to document that. But I think having a 3-argument form where the optional argument is second. But my other question is there a way of annotating the image to add the criterion? Like for example, when we do a mask, when we do a region of interest type thing, is that done by annotating the image, or is that done some other way?
It annotates the image.
How?
You mean highlight image, right?
No, I mean when you are doing an operation and that operation is being applied to a region of interest on the image.
It's actually applied.
No, I'm asking the question, when you have a function that says do something. So for example, if I did find faces and I've got this whole thing here, but I only want the find faces to be done on a particular part of that image. Is there a way of doing that by having some kind of region of interest wrapper around the image or something? Or do I instead just actually delete parts of the image that don't have what I want and then go from there?
Some functions have the masking option, not all functions have it. There was this idea to make masking available to more functions.
Okay, but it's an option. It's not a wrapper around the image.
It's not a wrapper, no.
All right. Well, what do you think here? I mean, I'm okay with Roger. What do you think about this criterion?
Well, I was thinking that we should try to think through what's the common case you want the easiest, right? So what do we think is the common case? Do we think
common case is without a criterion?
Then doesn't seem so wrong what's there now.
No, but I'm saying that the criterion, the optional 3-argument form will be image criterion prop. And the 2-argument form is image comma prop.
I'm not sure. I think the default is bounding box now. I think image and position and even other features like gender and age may be interesting as well as the second argument. Just give me all the ages of people in this.
Well, does that work?
Yeah. Well, if the gender classifier works, I think something is messed up in your build.
Can you show me on your screen? Can you show, what's it going to return in that case? Is it just going to return male, female, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. The same thing that facial features return.
But so what's the difference? I mean, if facial features is returning that, what's the difference between what find faces is returning and what facial features is returning?
It's basically the same with that second argument.
Yeah. What is going on here? Let me look. Which version am I running here? That's today's prototype build. Do you want to try this?
No, I'm trying it. Yeah, it works on my screen if you want me to share.
Yeah, let me see.
So something like this works. Find faces I, age. And then if I ask for some other property, it may need to download the network again.
Okay, but we have got to decide if those are entities or not before we start generating tons of documentation. If we change it later, we're going to have to generate a warning message. First of all, this has got to then be experimental, and we've got to then generate a warning message.
Find faces has been released already. This one cannot become experimental. Facial features,
features could be experimental. But look, well, whatever. Have you communicated with anybody about this entities business for male, female?
Not for male, female, no. For emotions, we thought we'll use the entity, word entities, not for this one.
Okay, let's say we start off using strings here, and then we want to go to using entities. How can we deal with that? In the future, we would end up having to generate some warning message if we see that somebody has strings in the input, probably. Am I making sense? We'd have to have some function.
Parsing the function.
Yeah. Because otherwise they're just going to get the wrong answer. Okay, now what would facial features do for that image? If you say facial features, gender for that image? Yeah.
It basically does the same thing. Well, by the way, my question was about facial features. We can go back to that.
Don't. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're killing the documentation.
No, yeah, but facial features. Basically the same thing.
Okay. Well, why don't you delete that so that you don't mess up? Oh, I
see.
No,
this is the in product one.
Yeah, right. Okay. What's the ordering, by the way? Is it left to right?
Yes.
In the image? So what's the ordering in the 2D plane? If you've got a much bigger array of, if you've got 4 people arranged on a square, what ordering does it use?
By probably row and column.
Okay, so it's reading across the rows.
But I don't know if that's the good sorting down the road. I think
it's a good sorting, because when you see photographs of collections of people, and it'll always say, left to right in each row, back row, middle row, front row.
Okay, because I
think
was
that is the
thinking,
canonical ordering.
I was thinking we do this down the road. So based on some combination of strength and area, sort the faces, and then eventually add the max features option.
I wouldn't do that. I would do I would do the way that people annotate, random photographs of groups of people.
Okay, then the same top to bottom, left to right sorting.
No. Think it goes across. It's back row left to right, middle row left to right, front row left to right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it is. It's literally reading across. It's the result of doing flatten on the array.
But simply sorting based on row and column, starting from top there, is going to do the same thing, right? So anything, I think so. Anything that appears on the top is going to be first, and then anything is on the left is going to be first.
That's not completely obvious to me that that's the same. Remember what I'm saying? I'm saying,
but
remember the row, maybe people are slightly closer, slightly further away on that row.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's not precisely.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It takes a little bit of a more fancy algorithm, although not very much more fancy.
Yeah.
Roger, is this making sense to you?
Yeah, but we need to look into it. But I think that what you're saying is left to right, top to bottom. And that's the same as lexicographic in that row, comma, column.
Yeah, but Stephen would like this to be a little fancier. So if one face is slightly, like the second one here is slightly higher.
Yeah, that doesn't count as another row. That's my point, Roger.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it wants to be some kind of segregation, some kind of clustering or something. Would be the best thing. I mean, that would be a very cool thing to be able to do, because then we can, that would be the natural thing, I think, for people.
Okay.
Now, also the default return value, the default second argument is a rectangle, which means that you can use it in highlight image, which means that you can sort of see it in the bigger picture, so to speak.
Which is good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for fine faces. The default is a bunch of rectangles.
That's right.
Okay. Are you sure the singulars of those property names are right? Find faces, comma, image. I mean, the name of the function is find faces, plural.
Yeah. It basically matches these guys as well. I think so. And then, yeah, I don't know. For image and upcoming image contents, we're going to do separate functions for each one of those bounding box, image bounding boxes and so forth.
Roger, what do you think? I mean, the fact that that function has a pluralized name, because that's cropped image containing the recognized text. In the case of text recognized, is there potentially a list of images there?
Yes, because we could split by line and word and character, and so we get bounding boxes or image crops for individual at that level. That is specified.
Right. Humph. Well, it seems okay for now. Okay. I think we have to see what it's like. I mean, we can always compatibly introduce images plural if we need to. All right, should we go back to my screen, or we continue to look, or should we look at your screen? Because
either way. Oh, mine works at least. So okay, my question was about this boxes in facial features, the third argument of facial features.
Yep.
We want a way to be able to specify bounding boxes of faces and then get the numbers corresponding to each feature back. Now, one proposal was to have the third argument boxes. The other one would be something like a pre-processing function that could be set to none. And the use cases, let me see if we have examples, where we have already pre-processed, maybe nothing in here, but when we have cropped images already and we want to get faces like this case, we don't want to run find faces again to find the bounding boxes. We just want to assume that this is a full face and then pass this to the network to compute the features.
Just as an efficiency hack.
As an efficiency hack, or if the face detection doesn't work properly, and then we want to do this step manually of face detection and then pass the bounding boxes to facial features.
But I mean, look, we surely could train a classifier that in milliseconds at most would tell you, is this a picture of a single face?
Mm-hmm.
So really this function, whatever it is that we're doing here, and we could do that with very low error rate, I would think. So what is the real point here? To be able to save those few moments of, do we need to run find faces or not?
Or to compensate for those few percentages that we get failures.
Why don't you do it initially then as a method setting, and then, and that's one of the things that you can specify there. Don't pre-process. Just run it.
Yeah,
because it's probably a rare case, realistically.
Yeah, and it may be a case that we can just get rid of entirely.
Okay, so we'll do something like this pre-processing function.
Yeah, because we don't think it's going to be a mainstream use case, or if it becomes a mainstream use case, then we upgrade it.
Why are we even doing pre-processing function to F? It's like pre-processing arrow true or false or something.
But you can also make it a function, right?
What would that function be?
Well, find faces is the simplest one, but find faces with some criteria could be some more complex function. And then my own network that does face detection could be another function, right?
All right, fine.
Find me all the kids' faces.
Yeah.
Right. We might need some of those macro things like children, adults, whatever.
Makes sense, yeah.
Now, what are those hair color things? Are those going to give swatches?
Eventually, well, swatches or just a color, I think.
No, but you mean an RGB color or something?
RGB color, yes.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do. But what happens to the person who has green and purple stripes in their hair?
A list of colors, maybe? I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Okay. We don't have a concept of a swatch. I think the easiest.
No, we don't need a. Okay, so
list of colors, list of RGB colors.
Well, or you could have an image whose pixels have the right proportions. It's a little weird. I mean, it's reminiscent of dominant.
Go that route,
I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy. I think hair color. I think we just decide, humans, unlike tabby cats, get one hair color.
I think so. At least for now.
Yeah, but how do we make a compatible change if the I think tabby cats isn't it an X chromosome linked thing, that the fur color? That's why they have if I'm not mistaken, I don't know. I think only female cats have that tabbying thing because it's an X chromosome linked thing, I think. But who knows? Anyway, not true for humans. Anybody can have multicolored hair.
I have multicolored eyes.
Oh, good for you. Okay. That's less common, right?
I mean, they're not different. They're just yellow and green.
What do you mean? I mean, is it a single color value?
No, parts of it is yellow, parts of it is green. And they can become gray.
Well, I think probably once we have any network or any means to return these, we just return one color. And if somebody wants the shades, we can return sub-images for eye and hair and so forth. And then they can do dominant colors.
Fair enough. That's a good idea. So that would be something like eye image.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. What's this association of left and right eyebrow? Is that so? Then you can say eyebrow, eyes, comma, image. Is that correct?
This one.
Yeah. Let me see, facial features. So then what you would be doing is you'd be saying find faces. I don't understand how that works. So what you want is, get out all the eyes in the picture, so to speak. Right? Since you know the eye bounding boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the case of find faces, you are asking for an image, which is the subimage containing the face. So what you would also want is something like, eye, comma, image, which would give you presumably the a list. Eye, comma, image would give you the disembodied two eyes, so to speak.
And if that is making the syntax very complicated, we can get bounding boxes of the points that are coming back from individual features, and then
How
pass that
do you
to
get
image
bounding
frame.
boxes? Does facial features give you bounding boxes?
No, this one gives you a set of points. And then region bounds could be used, for instance.
Well, how does it, is there a property? Could you scroll up to the top of this?
No, this one, facial features doesn't, these are the features that we get back.
The features are represented how?
Well, these
So wait a
ones,
minute, when
the
you
landmarks,
Okay.
the landmarks you're thinking about, these are a set of points.
You know what? You should say points there. Because
Okay.
otherwise people, what's that?
So for instance, this is points representing the nose.
I think you should say nose points.
Oh, okay, I see. Central line and nose bridge. Okay. So something like
it's either a
the
line, but it's the point. But no, but I think you should call it nose points. I think
okay,
you should call the facial
Oh.
landmark nose points.
this one.
Yes.
And then
Because
a
I
law
think when
for
you
some
say
other.
nose, you know, because you could imagine another one called nose image.
Yep.
Because when you're saying, when you say, for example, you know, back up above, you say something like gender, right? You are giving back male or female, whereas, you know, with nose, you might expect that you're actually getting back a nose rather than just getting back a bunch of pixel positions. So I strongly recommend changing each of those to, you know, face outline you could still have, but left eyebrow points, left eye points, etc.
Or line. For this one, I think this one comes back as a line.
Okay, then you better say that.
Yeah. So left eye points and so forth.
I wouldn't, by the way, in the way documentation style writes, you don't want to say line with a capital L, you just want to say line.
As a line. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll fix that one.
Okay.
Should we go back to your screen?
Yeah, why don't we go back to my screen? Okay, what's next? So is that all we were doing with find faces?
Yes. I think that's all from the list of image features. From audio features, before we get to speech, inverse spectrogram array.
Yes.
We're exploring this idea of spectrogram object. We were just talking to Carlo whether we have to return that from spectrogram or spectrogram array, and what functions should work on them, what kinds of processing make sense, and so forth. I really don't feel comfortable doing this for 11.3.
Okay. Well, okay, fine. But
I think it would be a good thing for us to explore, because then once you have it, you see, then you want a bunch of more operations on it.
Fine, but I think so. Okay, fine. So we won't do it for 11.3, but let's plan on. I'm thinking spectrogram array gives you what it says. It's an array. It's a raw array of numbers that you can manipulate however you want. But spectrogram returns a spectrogram object that you can then, you know, that then displays as. It's not even obvious to me that spectrogram can't itself be the displayer, so to speak.
It's typically referred to the graph or graphics of the spectrogram. So it typically
I understand, but graph, you could say, refers to the graphics too, but graph is a self-displayer. If you understand what I'm saying.
It could potentially auto-visualize. And Shadi, the way we do that, if you want to then eventually convert it to graphics to combine and other things, show would be that converter that makes it just pure graphics.
Okay.
But as long as you keep it as an active object, but that, I think it depends on how much we want to do with it. How
I think we should do a lot with it. I think it should be like, you know, like an audio signal. You should be able to do, you know, down sample. You should be able to do audio of the spectrogram, and it should convert it to a, you know, a time domain audio signal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And what do you want to be stored in it?
Everything you need.
Fourier transform and all the parameters.
I think so. So that you can generate an audio object from it. So you can, for example, you know, I would imagine you want an inverse spectrogram. Possibly, yeah, you'd want an inverse spectrogram or something. So you'd want spectrogram, and then you want inverse spectrogram. And what would the inverse spectrogram go back to? That's not completely clear to me because that we don't have an auto-visualizing sort of data array.
Yeah, but we can store in the object whether the spectrogram, the short time Fourier transform is coming from an audio object, time series, or a regular list.
Fair enough. I see what you're
Go
saying.
back to that.
I mean, wavelets do that. So if you transform, that was sample sound list at the time, but if you transform audio, you get a wavelet with audio objects at the various levels.
Fine.
If you inverse transform, you get back that original object.
That sounds exactly like the right thing to do here as well.
You know, and you do the same with images. You know, you come back and you get the image back.
Can we make a meaningful spectrogram of an image? Is there a 2D analog? Who knows? Well, anyway, let's continue here.
Okay. So the inverse spectrogram array function is going to stay for next version. The rest,
I guess so. I mean, make sure it's experimental because I don't think it's going to survive.
Okay.
I mean, it might survive.
I think it's going to be called inverse spectrogram based on the discussion we're having.
Yeah, but there might still be an inverse spectrogram array, which is just the pure bits, so to speak. I mean, the pure array elements.
Okay.
Okay.
Then one other thing before we go to speech, audio distance. Currently, the default method or distance function is the Euclidean of waveform. But Carl and I were thinking probably spectral Euclidean is going to be a better default distance.
It seems kind of nutty to have the thing be just the actual waveform distance.
Exactly.
I mean, does it try to align itself from a time warping point of view before it does the distance?
No, but we do have a warping distance as a distance function there as well. If you scroll down in the second table of distance function, third table there, warping distance is also a possible setting.
What is this? Following distance functions are also available. How do you specify them? You just say distance function.
Yeah.
Well, you should make that. Okay, fair enough.
I actually paused there once or twice as well. Maybe I'll make it more clear from the text above the table.
Yes.
Additional settings for distance function, the symbol.
That would be much better.
Okay.
Yes. Additional common settings for.
Okay.
Roger, what do you think about this distance measure?
Well, I think Shad is right that it should be spectrogram is, and I think that there are other ones too. I think we have them listed there. Which one is it?
So what is the typical use of this audio distance? Is this for like comparing audio?
Cepstral is what I was thinking.
Okay.
You know, because that's very significant for speech, for instance.
Right, but what is the real point of this, Shadi?
Nearest and clustering and all of those functions can take this. At least we need a default for nearest and find clusters.
Fair enough, but I mean, we do, but I would think, I mean, aren't most, okay, so if I say various vowels or something, A, E, I, O, U or whatever, and I say them 5 times over, does audio distance actually realistically, group as nearest the ones that are the same vowel, or is it not? It's not looking at other random features that will just get it totally confused, like their different lengths and things like this. Do you understand my question? I mean, in other words, if I've got 3 renderings of E, right, and 3 renderings of A. Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying. The durations are being conformed, so we are we're trimming, but it really, I think, depends on the set of audio objects that you have. For certain audio objects, definitely these distances are not going to be suitable. That's why we have net encoders and all the other, the rest of the framework to do.
Okay, but as a practical matter, if you just take 2 vowel sounds or something, is this going to work, do you think, or is it not going to work?
Yeah,
you think it is going to work?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Some of these spectral ones are definitely going to work.
Okay. By the way, in a feature space plot, do you have any idea how an audio object is iconized in a feature space plot? Is it all sensible?
The minimal player might not be completely off.
No, that might not be crazy, but we should check what actually happens.
Okay.
It may also turn the thing, and whatever it is, it might turn it into a bitmap, which is rather infelicitous. And I mean,
Then in that case, I think a waveform.
I agree,
an
or a
audio
spectrogram.
Yeah.
A spectrogram might be even better.
Okay.
If it's got to bitmap it. I think a spectrogram would be better.
Okay.
And if it's clickable and then can be played or something, that would be terrific.
Okay.
All right, should we move on here?
Yep. So spectral Euclidean, I finalize as a default there, right? I think
it's okay with Roger. It's okay with me.
Yeah, Roger. I don't think we can assume speech is the default or the common signal that comes into audio distance. So I feel more comfortable going with a more generic spectral measure.
Right. I'm not 100% sure. Surely that's better than the audio waveform,
Yes.
but I'm not 100% confident.
Does Carlo have an opinion?
Spectral Euclidean was
okay, fine.
what
All right, let's go with that.
Okay.
Okay, onward. Speech. Okay, I thought of the word voice has so many different meanings. We cannot use it nakedly.
I agree.
Look at the new version of speech synthesize.
Okay.
Can you update? I pushed it to the server very close to this meeting.
Okay, while it updates, what's next for us? Speech resynthesize.
Yeah.
You know, this was the one I was rather unconvinced by. This is make me sound like somebody else type thing. Is that right?
Yes.
But can we really do that decently well?
It's not super fancy.
Okay.
But it's way fancier than sort of, I mean, it uses, what it does is automatically identify basically model features of how your vocal.
Right, that's great.
You know, and then it modifies those. So it does sound, well, human or cartoon, you know.
Okay. I don't really like the word resynthesize. I mean, I think, wouldn't it be better to say, I mean, we've got image restyle. The word resynthesize, you know, it sounds like you're doing, you know, recycling or something, which is really weird. Did that make any sense? Or I don't think it's the right. Well, I'm thinking speech restyle. I mean, it's part of the restyle family. It's part of the make this seem like something else.
Didn't we discuss the name image restyle last week? And debating whether that has to be changed as well to something else? I don't quite remember.
Well, there was a discussion about the fact that it should be more general.
Mm-hmm.
That's speech synthesize.
Yes.
No, speech synthesize there's no problem with. I'm just talking about speech resynthesize.
But why don't you open that page then?
The resynthesize page.
Right.
Yeah, we also wanted to look at the voice.
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Okay, I think you were right, Steve.
What are we talking about? I'm right about what?
To open the one that you did open.
Speech synthesize, because
we were talking about the voice option.
Yes. Okay, this horrifying thing about files. Yeah, I don't like this. Okay, so this is, yes, I agree. I think that's a much better way to do it.
And then we either push the file argument to the third argument, and I really would like to have some kind of a target location down the road as an option, which we still haven't figured out.
Well, wait a second. So what would happen in that case if you give the target location is that the return value here will be a file object. Is
yes.
that correct?
Will be an audio of a file object.
No, a file object of an audio. Oh, an audio of a file object.
Audio of a file, yes.
I see. So for this particular case, the question of the location is pretty secondary because it will really seem to be the same object. It's just one of them is remotely located and one of them isn't.
Yes.
How do we specify remote location for things in general with audio?
Remote, not, you mean?
No, I don't mean remote. I mean on
out
not,
of core.
Yeah.
Audio of the string, where string is the file path, is the main construct of an audio out of core audio.
No, I understand, but how do you specify that you want the audio when you do an audio generation? when you do audio generation, how do you specify that you want the audio saved to a file as opposed to purely in core?
Well, this is one function that, so in core, I think if you look down in the excluded notes, target location in core is a hidden option.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm asking the question, when you use audio generators, right? You know what I'm talking about. I'm
In our system?
Yes.
Audio generate is always in core.
Okay, well, what if you didn't want it in core?
Yeah. Same problem. We have to solve it for all of them. Audio capture at the same time is always out of core. Same as this speech synthesize.
What is it called? Audio generator?
Generate.
No, audio generator, isn't it? Okay, but how do we generate from the audio generator? Oh, we just get this.
We just get in core, yeah. Which is also not optimal, especially if you ask for a very long audio.
Look, I think that this location thing is very much like the persistence locations that we've got in the persistent system. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether we want to call it target location. I mean, I would almost call it storage location. And I would say, or alternatively, it's, there's a persistence location that we already have, but I don't know how much we want to call it persistence location. We could say storage location, or see, I'm thinking session is a nice way to describe the in-core thing. But maybe that's silly. Look, you can just call it memory. Core is like, we're not in the 1960s anymore.
Okay.
Of course, if we call it disk, if it was memory and disk, we're still back in the 1980s or 90s or something.
Yep.
Well, so we'd probably say storage location arrow memory or arrow file.
Okay.
Be my suggestion. Roger, what do you think?
Yeah, the core businesses ain't going to go anywhere. In core, out of core.
What? I mean, you agree that's out of date?
Yeah. I mean, it's cute and everything, but it's.
And then Stephen is suggesting storage location as an actual option here, and in other functions. Yeah,
that's what I'm suggesting. Roger, what do you think?
Yeah, but we still want. We have this. This is a sort of a system-wide issue. We have a bunch of things that get stored in a variety of places. We still got to complete that survey and clean that up.
I agree. But there's the two cases are the persistence locations and these things which are storage, because this is not intended to be persistent. There's a separate issue of whether it's persistent, right?
And I think persistence options should also get added to these functions.
Well, fine, that's a different issue, but okay. So this is where we're going. Storage location is probably where we're going. And I would think, I mean, you're going to return an audio object, right? From this.
Yes.
So just don't worry about the name of the file. If you really want the name of the file specified, then, maybe we can use some weird method option for the time being. But fundamentally, I mean, do you expect to return an in-core, in-memory audio object most of the time from speech synthesizer, or do you expect to return something which references an out-of-core file?
Currently, it always creates an out-of-core file.
All right, fine. Well, then why don't you just do, why don't you just return audio of some UUID'd file? And
then storage location is a path for that file.
Well, eventually it can be, yes. But I mean, I think you can say method arrow storage, quote, storage location arrow, whatever, for the time being.
Okay.
If you really want to set it for the time being.
And get rid of that third argument for now.
That's what I'm suggesting, yes, because I just don't think anybody cares. I mean, especially since you just admitted to me that audio capture has the same deal.
Yes.
Without having an argument, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it just doesn't make sense. It's like...
No, it has arguments.
Oh, no. Ouch.
experimental as well, as I said a few times, exactly for that same reason.
Yeah. I mean, this one I can see more arguments for it to have an actual explicit file. I just can't imagine, you know, with speech synthesis that you're going to, I mean, the point with audio capture, you might be capturing that one incredible moment of excitement, right? And you really want to store it in a permanent file. With speech synthesize, it's just the machine is generating some crazy, you know, speech, and you're not going to want to keep it as your prized audio specimen. You see what I'm saying? So the file is a much more secondary thing, just for pure convenience.
Mm-hmm. But currently, when we do create a file, it becomes persistent. We don't clean up.
I understand that. I understand. I understand. Look, if you want to have it as a third argument to speech synthesize to go along with audio capture, go ahead. I think it's kind of random right now.
Okay.
I think, Stephen, where we can, I think, consistently clean this up is to get where do we store things, and also if you want to share, you know, what are the mechanisms in play to
which is the whole persistence mechanism,
right?
Which is quite well developed, actually. Okay, all right.
I'll go back to Itai. I've discussed this with Itai once a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Probably we have to complete our inventory of what functions create file and where and all of that.
Fine.
We'll have to finalize.
I mean, Roman is also involved in this, right? He's the one who built the persistence framework.
Yes.
Okay.
And how about the method settings? Currently, we have the generic and the OS synthesis. I vaguely remember you have given those some names in some other function. Don't know where. Is system versus generic good names?
Well, I think one place we might have done that is in some kind of rasterization of things like the for when you rasterize and manipulate and so on. There's a question of whether you use generic controls or whether you use system controls.
Mm-hmm.
Does rasterize know about that stuff? I don't know whether it's in rasterize or whether it's in
Well, I hope rasterize one day gets a generic rasterizer. I don't think it does now.
Okay.
But it might be an appearance, you know. It might
yes, that's right. It might be in the appearance rules.
You know, slider, generic, you know.
Yeah, I think that's where it is. No. Okay, got to ask somebody in that, like Lou, who would know about front end options.
Okay.
Don't know. I think there is such a thing.
But maybe not in appearance rules, maybe in appearance, a setting to appearance.
Doesn't seem to have many appearances. No. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's just look at slider, for example, to see whether that has something. No. All right. Something like this exists.
Yeah.
You should look at it. Okay, let's keep going here though. So if I do speech synthesize here, it will default to my system speech synthesizer. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, and then I have speech synthesis voices.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, what the heck is that?
Yeah, we have. How else do you suggest we return it? I don't like this result either. But we have two sets of voices for different synthesizers.
I would suggest appending generic to the generic ones and just putting them all in one list, because I don't think. I mean, I have no idea what on earth are some of these things. So if I say speech synthesize, I mean, are these really? Okay, what's the one that's closest to yours, Shadi?
Nobody with Persian accent.
Okay,
I'll train I'll train a network with me once we have the trainer. But pick one of the female ones, Anna. I think it's the voice option still in your build. Voice goes to Anna.
Okay.
That's weird.
Should I try another voice?
Sure. Pick one of the generic ones.
Alan W. Black. Is that a particular person?
Yep.
Okay.
And if you
I was wandering around CES. When was it? Last year, the year before, and there was somebody. There's this woman who'd been the voice of Siri, and they were wandering around with some. Who was it? It was like TechCrunch or something like that. Was wandering around with a camera and having people talk to this woman who was the voice of Siri. So I don't know what happened to my conversation with her, which was quite strange, which mostly consisted of asking her how she'd gotten that gig and whether she'd known what it was. And they said they didn't really tell her what the heck it was. They just told her to record these random things. So anyway, that's really quite irrelevant. But I'm not able to make this work. So what should I do here? Is this the right version?
I have the same problem. I don't know. A lot of open PRs and different branches. I'm wondering if.
All right. Let's talk about these voices. And this is a pretty unuseful list, in my opinion. I mean, not least because I haven't a clue what Mariska,
One thing we're going to be doing, not for 11.3 perhaps, is to give you parameters for each one of them. Parameters like, was this a female or male? Was this, American English, British English, English trained on English text with Polish accent, all of
look, you know what? I mean, to me, seeing this as a data set would be much more useful. And possibly even just having it in the data repository as a, available voices or some such other thing, because I see that won't work because these are all part of a neural net. Okay, so hold on, what should we do here?
No, these are typically files. These are typically individual files.
All right, so look, an analogy to this is in SoundNote, right? I mean, I've been kind of upset about this forever. This, we have this, right? We have these, that's sort of the analog of this. And right now, one of the frustrating things is that we don't have this list. So what would we call that list? We would say $sound note instruments, probably. Or sound note voices. It's not really voices. Sound note
instruments. Why
actually
not
styles, which is what it's called there. Sound note styles, which is analogous to, I mean, there's, things like that are things like $font families. Let's do $sound note styles, okay?
Okay.
And then we can call it $speech synthesis styles, potentially. And then, because, it might not be, it might be a single person, with different, making different voices or who knows what. Now, if we say $speech synthesis styles, is that really right? See, what we're going to need here, I mean, for me, this is quite useless. I don't even have, I have any idea what Lekka, I don't know what that, it's not a name I recognize immediately. Who knows? Maybe it's a, Indian name or something. I just don't know.
No, me neither. I agree. But you want more properties associated to each one of
Right, but I mean, for example, Xander. Okay, Xander is a shortening for Alexander. Presumably that's an American, a cool dude American voice or something, but who knows? So is this different if you're on Windows, for example, are these voices different?
Yes.
Can I, what would happen if is there a place in the system dialog, in system preferences where I can see stuff about some,
Go to your Apple preferences settings. System preferences.
Oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. I've got a list of voices here. I see. Well, for goodness sake, this is crazy. I mean, because these voices are all distinguished by language and by accent, right?
Exactly, yes.
So we've got a framework, don't we, for and I mean, clearly this is completely crazy that we've got, if we speak English with Yuna, for example, does it come out with a Korean accent, or does it just sound completely crazy?
Or is that, oh, that's Korean. I haven't tested this. This is a language discussion that Roger and I have discussed as well. Which is, I think, default settings are going to be even more interesting than what you ask. If you ask for a Korean voice to read an English text, it will probably come back not sensible.
Well, is it not sensible, or is it just going to have a Korean accent?
No,
I don't know. Okay, so someone on the live stream is suggesting, how about just voice styles? Yeah, I mean, I agree that speech synthesis styles is a little odd because we might end up using them. I don't know whether we'll end up using them elsewhere.
Oh, right. Possibly.
That's a possibility.
Yep.
But what we want to eventually get to sort of is language support, synthesis in more languages.
Right.
And then you better be able to,
we're going to have a language option, presumably.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we can have a language identify auto-detect mechanism.
True.
But my question here is, I know for the spelling dictionaries that we have been let's see, for the spelling dictionaries, we've got some kind of regionality, like for British English versus American English.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had a plan for our phonetics and IPA stuff to have also this kind of, whatever this is here.
Well, the IPA itself is international, but you mean that you have a dictionary that provides a IPA for an Australian?
Exactly. So in other words, when you have, the word about, for example, which in Canadian English is about, right? Those have different IPA.
Right.
So, that's interesting. Scotland is an administrative division that has. Okay, what are we going to do about this? So the first thing is we've got to have. Honestly, how many British English, American English are there here? So I see. So what's the difference in Agnes and Alex? Is Alex a unisex voice or something? I bet it is. Okay, so each one probably has a different characteristic. So the fact that it's called Alex. No, what's the difference in Ralph and Albert, for example? We have no idea.
Two different voices.
No, I understand that, but I'm asking whether there's clearly hysterical and good news.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we have, since this is the list from OS X, why isn't that showing up? Why isn't good news showing up in my list?
Well, see if you can add it and customize your voices. If you go to your system preferences, you can add more voices on Mac.
Okay.
Under accessibility, fourth row, last one of the fourth row. Speech, and click on Alex and customize.
Okay.
Well,
so that's what.
Yeah, the list you get back in Mathematica is more than what you saw there as the downloaded.
Well, look at this.
ones.
They've got.
Yeah.
U.S. female male novelty.
Mm-hmm.
Bubbles.
Zarvox, is that from like Hitchhiker's Guide or something? Okay, well, so clearly this is useful to be able to see these.
True.
I wonder what they do for, well, you guys may not know, but in British accents come in many varieties.
Sure.
There being a standardized BBC English, which I'm not sure anybody speaks, so maybe they've even changed it now. Okay.
But what you're suggesting is that voice styles or dollar, whatever we call it, gives back a data set or a list of association with properties for each voice.
I'm thinking because here, like with Denmark here, we've got, male and female. I don't know why oh gosh, this is okay. So that in Flanders, so to speak, or whatever. No, that's not. Is that right? I never remember. Flemish. Is that the Flemish part of Belgium as opposed to the French-speaking part of Belgium? Who knows? They've decided they only have a female.
Well, it's a training matter. Probably they didn't find the person or whatever.
Yeah, right. Okay, but so roughly what we've got is we've got a language, we've got we've got the things that they have here. We've got language, we've got locale, and we've got gender, and then we've got.
We could potentially also extract and use age. I think either the system voices or the generic voices give us back the age of the person.
Well, but what happens if I say I want an 11-year-old and there isn't an 11-year-old? I mean, what are we going to do?
I think, we were talking about this. Probably we have to come up with some kind of a nearest measure. But if none of the voices is close enough, give an error message or something. So I think
it's a little weird to say I want a 52-year-old. I mean, I think that there's a well, can we classify voices by age? Do we have a classifier for that?
Not yet.
Is it even possible?
I think so.
Okay.
Definitely for kids.
Within some, for kids for sure.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical for adults. I'm really skeptical. I think it's going to be much worse than the face thing, which has a bunch of additional cues. But I think that we could say, see, we've got these weird ones, which are like people imitating, Darth Vader and things like that, right? So how do we deal with those? We could leave that blank, and we could have name here, and that's the name, and then these other things are all pieces of tagging.
That could be a description, just to have a short textual description, which is sort of, these other ones are systematic, but there's something about them.
Right. Actually, somebody on our live stream, Halcyon Pomegranate, says most voices are just trained by different speakers and have different levels of sophistication in terms of audio material file size. E.g., Alex is quite a high quality voice and thus often the default English voice. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure my guess would be, I don't know what the state of training of all these things is, but my guess is they'll all be good before too very long. That is a different, okay, but so, sorry, what were we saying here? So, I mean, each one, the question is, what is the thing we return here? And is it, we could always say voice styles data set if we really wanted to.
Okay, so
nothing else is going to be very useful, I think, because I think that this is, you're going to want to select, but the problem is, okay, here's another one. Here's another possibility. If we had a voice styles, this isn't quite right. I mean, really what we want, although this is too elaborate, is a find a sample voice, right? I mean, really the best thing would be, to have some mechanism where you say, I want a You know, I want a person with a Finnish accent, with a, you know, well, we got some exoticity, like Carlo with a Scottish Italian accent, right? And let's see. I mean, in really, what one's going to want to do is to find a voice with certain characteristics. That will be the typical thing. Like, what voices do we have with certain characteristics? That's probably the most useful thing. Like, give me all voices that you know that you know, are plausible for Italian. And then over time, there'll probably be lots and lots and lots of voices available. And that quite probably there'll be URLs where you can go fetch voices. And quite possibly, you know, whether it's our repository or somebody else's repository, there can potentially be a repository of lots and lots of these voices.
Yeah. One thing is that these are not yet standardized. For instance, the voice files that the generic synthesizer uses is different from what Apple uses, different from what Windows uses.
Can we import them? Do we have an import format for these things?
No, we just pass them to our synthesizers now. But I think down the road, we can think about even importing them.
Although that's most useful if we could convert them into different systems and things, depending on what the licensing rules are and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. Humph. All right, so let's think some more about this. So your basic point is a voice is a file. And we happen to have certain files. So this is more like something where you say, you know, it's more like what resource objects, I mean, okay, so here's a question. These happen to be system files, but in general, we would expect that these voices will be represented by resource objects of some kind. Am I making sense? So like resource data of such and such a thing would be, you know, that is the maintained by us canonical location for a particular voice. What is an analogy? I mean, so an analogy to this is when you're searching for file. Go ahead, Roger. Yeah. What?
They're system dependent, you know, so that what's on the Mac is different what's on
I
Windows.
know that's true today, but I just don't know what the ecosystem of voices is going to look like in the future. Maybe nobody will care. I mean, maybe people are just going to be like, well, I just want some voice to read stuff to me. My guess is that's probably what's going to happen. So nobody will care that much.
I think that, yeah, I think that part of, so there's sort of design levels that will survive even during, you know, a transition. And so for instance, if I'm going to say something in, I don't know, Dutch, I need something that can synthesize Dutch, you know, yes. And that could survive from Mac to Windows to, you know, to Linux and elsewhere at that level.
Yeah.
And probably other things too, you know, like maybe gender.
What's your point? You just the fact that it is supposed to be in Dutch, but the fact that the Dutch people are Claire and Xander will clearly not survive.
Right.
But the fact, you know, Darth Vader might survive.
Right.
Okay, so where are we at with this? So what we've got.
So, but I think that these properties, you know, what you brought up is more or less what I brought up before, which is that, you know, one of the things that you really need is language, because you cannot guess.
Yeah, and you're going to need locale as well. Does anybody here? Do either of you know how we have dealt with the subvariants for you know what? I wonder if Alan happens to be around. Let's is Eric still with us? If so, could he see if he can find Alan Joyce? No. Let me.
I can bring him in.
Okay. If he is around. Okay. Because
also I expect the quality. I mean, I think that there's great reason to want to improve these synthesizers now, and they are being improved.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that
Okay, while we're waiting for Alan, so let's talk about this resynthesize thing, okay, which I'm deeply unconvinced by the name of. So the possibility would be speech restyle. Honestly, speech restyle, if we were calling these styles, like voice styles, speech restyle would be a much better name than resynthesize.
I don't think it's as sophisticated as you imagine it being.
Yeah, yet you cannot pass a reference audio to speech resynthesis and have
What do you pass it?
It's speech feature transformation, as it is now. So the specification could be things like pitch shift, time stretch, or you can specify what transformations to apply to a periodicity, fundamental frequency, and spectral envelope.
Okay, so that was what I was imagining, was that you passed to sample audio, because that's why I was surprised, because I've seen demos of things with sample audio, but they're not running in real time, and it's fairly complicated. But so, do we expect in the future you will be able to pass a sample audio?
Yes. See that third.
Clearly, we can do. I mean, at the level of pitch shift and so on, we can. By the way, whatever happened to pitch detect? Is pitch detect coming?
No.
What happened to pitch detect?
Yeah, it wasn't under my radar.
I thought Carlo was working on pitch detect.
Yeah, maybe we had a demo last year. We can detect fundamental frequencies, audio local measurements, and now.
Why don't we have a pitch detector? If we can actually do the fundamental frequency with some other function, why don't we just package it and provide pitch detect? Really would be very useful.
Okay, I'll look.
What would you use it for?
Music transcription. I mean, ultimately, what we want to do is being able to. I mean, it's the analog of image graphics. Right? It's the analog for audio of image graphics is what we ultimately want. Is what we want is to go from audio to sound of sound notes.
Yeah, but you know,
that's hard.
Yeah, and we can do that eventually, but that wouldn't be the same. We wouldn't use the function pitch detect to do that. It would.
No, I understand. Pitch detect is a simple thing that people seem to ask for with some regularity. I mean, probably once every 3 months, somebody will ask me, can you do pitch detection from audio? And they want it for at least toy versions of music transcription. And I mean, you know, the person on a live stream is saying style transfer might be a better name for what we're doing with restyling. Yeah, I think probably style transfer is the general term that we should use for all of these things, but we're not yet there. It's yeah, and the same person, Swish KA, is pointing out in the future voice will be represented as just an embedding in some deep neural net anyway, with an infinite collection of voices available. Yes, although there's still some parameters that have to be fed in. I mean, one would assume that the typical way of specifying, I mean, it's like, how do you specify a painting style? Well, right now, the main thing is to give examples, and my guess is that's how the voices thing will work as well. So, okay, so where are we at with this? So in terms of speech resynthesize, what do you think? You think it isn't right to say, I mean, it seems like a kind of a weird function right now. I mean, I guess we can have it as an experimental thing. It's unlikely to survive in its present form.
I kind of agree. Yeah. There are neural network-based approaches for these as well. There's going to be a lot added to it. So I don't know. We can just wait or release it experimentally.
I think we might as well release it experimentally. It doesn't really matter.
So things that you can do, and you hear this in ads all the time, you can time stretch. And one thing you can, typically you want to shorten it. Like in an ad, when you read the fine print,
Sure.
they don't sound like Donald Duck. It sounds like a real voice.
But we already have that, don't we? We have a time stretching thing just for audio, don't we?
We do, yes.
So it really has nothing to do with speech. Which functions here? I don't understand here. What are these things just using standard audio functions, or are they doing something special with speech?
Special for speech. So in audio local measurements, we are adding speech fundamental frequency as a new property as well. So it's different than the fundamental frequency.
Okay, but what will be the analogous audio transformation functions here? Do you understand the question? I mean, in other words, for this, isn't there a pitch transforming function, a pitch shift function?
We have audio pitch shift and audio time stretch, yes.
Okay, and this is a specialization of those. I mean, this is pretty funky, if I might say so. I mean, what you're doing is you're deciding it's audio pitch shift as a function, but in speech resynthesized, bizarrely, it's some kind of, other argument with strings and things, which seems kind of weird to me.
Yeah, maybe we should actually put these in audio pitch shift and audio time stretch.
Yeah, and just say method error speech or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and method is automatic. We can have a classifier to determine what kind of audio it is.
Yep.
I think that's the right way to do it.
I would wait on speech resynthesize then.
Okay, fine. Well, let's try and get these into, can you put them in as a method option to audio pitch shift for now?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds
and audio time stretch.
Yeah. And what does Formant Shift do? Who knows?
Stretches the spectral envelope. That's the third property or feature extracted from speech signals.
And do we have an audio
local? No, we don't, but we can get the spectral envelope now from audio local measurements.
Right, but we can't modify the spectral envelope.
No. The point of the current speech resynthesize is to get these three properties and be able to transform them. But maybe you're right. If we do add audio, the method goes to speech in pitch shift and time stretch, we could have something like an audio form or speech format shift, or just format shift for that matter.
Yeah, audio formant shift or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, we're going to want speech restyle or style transfer. I mean, ultimately, we're going to want style transfer, the general function style transfer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think for now, let's wait on speech resynthesize, put these things into, I mean, you can leave it in, why don't you put it in the experimental context, speech resynthesize, just so we can play with it. Okay, I think Alan just joined us. Is Alan with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we are talking about voices for speech.
I can see that.
You might say, why are you here?
Where we were talking about languages, so this is a nice shift. Okay.
Okay. All right, so the issue is these things have a language and they have a locale of some kind. And can you remind me how we are encoding that for the spelling dictionaries and such like?
How we're encoding it for the spelling dictionary. We have a language locale entity that is not really released yet, but they exist in the internally.
Okay.
And they are essentially following these same codes. I mean, these are sort of standard things coming out of the CLDR, right? So it's language and locale. We should have an entity for each of those things.
Okay, so in other words, you're telling me if I say entity, is it in here yet, or is it not?
Yeah, I think it's language locale.
Okay, so if I say,
I can't remember what the standard names are, but and I don't think they have that format.
Okay.
Get a random entity for language locale. Should work.
Okay. Do you know that kind of Swedish, Roger?
No. I mean, it's an island between Finland and Sweden, so I can kind of guess, but
Fair enough. And I love the way that French is there's just one of it.
Well, I think there are probably other locales that are French specific to some locale. This just happens to have pulled up French.
Oh, you mean it isn't standardized? No, it's a country which might, they standardize the structure of the language. So, okay, this is a bit funky. Why are we using that weird, unification code if there is a standard thing like, FR underscore whatever?
That's a good question. This is part of why this isn't actually released yet, because we had created something to try to make sure we had some entities that could work with the reworking of language settings. But since that hasn't been done yet, we haven't finalized this. This was just a working Packlet until we figured out what we wanted to.
Right. I mean, to me, it seems like we should have. We should use these things somewhere. If we're going to use unification here, it should be French : FR underscore whatever it is. Something like that. Okay, so we have a language locale mechanism here. So we might have, so that means that for our voices here, we are presumably going to end up with a language locale element. Oh, we were talking about gender and whether we were having entities for gender. Are you aware of that issue, and what have we done on that?
I mean, I think we have male and female. We have a very basic set of gender entities because we haven't decided how we wanted to wade into representing all the different things that people think are genders or should be formal genders.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
There is. I mean, we do have male and female. If that's all you really need for your purposes now, we have entities for them.
But they're not. But the control equals doesn't produce those, does it?
I don't think so. They probably don't have. They don't work on their own because.
And what is the entity type? Gender.
Gender. Yeah.
What on earth are we going to do with I mean, oh boy, this is going to get so weird. I mean, what are we going to do with training? We could train on.
You mean entity, right? Not entity type.
Yeah, right. Well, that's so bizarre. What's it doing?
No idea why that's hanging. Mine was quick.
Okay, so we do have these. Oh, my gosh.
Should we start returning them?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's not do it for 11.3.
Okay.
But let's plan on doing this in the future.
But how about emotion?
No, we're returning the for emotion. We are returning. I assume that control equals works for emotion. Oh, what does it do here? That's not very useful. How do I get the emotion, the entities for emotion?
We haven't put an emotion entity in yet. That's actually something that's going into 11.3? I didn't think that was coming that soon.
Isn't that exactly what we have here? Shadi, what are we returning?
We're still returning strings from facial features. I thought we have the emotion entities, so the plan.
Well, I thought Etienne had put in emotion entities.
For classify?
Yes, I think so. I think his classifier is returning emotion entities. Okay, we've got a mess on our hands here. So ultimately, these things should deal with entities, but we've got to have those supported in control equals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So someone needs to at least check what Etienne has done in the emotion.
Etienne certainly isn't going to know how to put an entity into alpha, so that's going to need some developer on my side. We had a meeting about this a few weeks ago, but I didn't think that this was something that was going in for 11.3. Is there something that should be returning a new kind of entity for
I thought so. I thought that
I'm
his
just checking classify. It's returning a word entity. So it is an entity, but it's entity word fear.
oh, that's
whatever.
horrifying. Oh, that's so horrifying.
If you give me the list of emotions that are supposed to be recognized right now, we can do a very simple entity type and try to get it in quickly.
But then are we going to put those as the defaults for the control equals for those words?
That seems weird.
But if we don't do that, people will not be able to get them. Okay, we've got a mess on our hands here. And we're also out of time for this meeting. I think we need to talk to, I don't know, it's, let's see if we can find Etienne. Maybe if we can find Etienne, we can ask him directly what's gone on there. Okay, so we'll see if we can find him. Okay, so meanwhile, Alan, you might have an opinion about this. I mean, we're trying to return, so in different systems, there are different voices available. The voices have various attributes. They also have cutesy names.
Sure.
You know, we should probably have a sample piece of text in a whole variety of languages. Do we have in language data? We should probably have a just a convenient one sentence, I don't know what the sentence should be, for everything in language data. So you can say, just like you can say, you know, you got a picture, you've got an aardvark, and you say, give me a picture of the aardvark. Given a language, it's like, give me a sample piece of text in that language. Did that make any sense?
And also sample piece of audio and so forth.
Well, that'd be great too, but go ahead, Alan, what were we going to say?
Should it you mean the same piece of text translated into all those languages?
I'm thinking, I mean, if we had that, I mean, if we, you know, maybe whether that UN Declaration of Human Rights or something is in lots of languages. I don't know whether probably the Bible is more than as many as anything.
I mean, you're thinking about a piece of text that size, or like?
No, I'm thinking about in the beginning there was, you know, whatever.
Let's not use the Bible.
Yeah, let's not use that. Okay, that has too many.
Or the Quran,
language.
or the Talmud.
Yeah, right. Let's skip those. Okay, but if you can think of, I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really tough to get that for hundreds of languages. Maybe there's a place.
Nothing to look for.
Yeah, right. But I think having a sample, having a very benign sample piece of text will be useful for purposes like these, like gosh, I wonder what would be a good, really benign.
What is the purpose to have it spoken?
For example, but I mean, I'm just saying that it would just be a sample sentence.
I mean, I'm coming into this late. Is the whatever functionality is speaking this sentence going to be able to pronounce things correctly in that language, given just text in a particular script? Do we need a phonetic form of the?
Well, that's each one of these voices is presumably trained for that particular, you know, is a network trained to take the textual form of that particular language and render it as speech.
Hi, it's Tim.
Hi. Hey, we have a question. We've got Roger and Shadi and Alan here. We are talking about whether to return entities or strings from various classifiers. Okay, so in particular, the facial features classifier, there's a question for emotion and for gender of what we're returning. So apparently you've now put in entities, but you've put in the word versions of those entities.
Currently, yes, for the facial emotion or facial expression, I don't know the current name. And But the idea was to switch it to specific entities.
I understand.
As soon
But
as
the
they're
problem,
available.
okay, so here's the problem that's come up. So in find faces, there is a criterion argument which allows you to say, you know, things like hash gender equals male. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is that if we change, if hash gender returns, you know, right, you get it. So the question is, what are we going to do? Because we kind of have to standardize, but then the difficulty is if you say hash gender equals male, and you know you don't even know how to type in the male entity, so to speak. How do you deal with that? And the question then for Alan is, you know, is it plausible to have control equals male do this or not? Is that crazy? If we say control equals happiness, do you get the emotion or do you get the word?
And where are you just control equals by itself on a line, or this is in some function where you're specifying that you're searching for this thing?
Well, okay. So the problem is that it is hard to see how one would autocomplete here. I mean, maybe there's a contextualized autocomplete that could help with this. I mean, look, a typical case is you say find faces, maybe Shadi can show us, but I mean, basically it's something along the lines of, you know, find faces, an image, comma, you know, I don't know, image, comma, and then it's something like hash gender equals blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's what it looks like right now. Now, there's a certain argument that I mean, you know, you could have this hash gender equals that and hash age greater than 10. See what I'm saying?
I mean, we could still accept the strings. I think that's what we do in text cases.
How do we do it with double equals here? This is an actual function.
True.
That's the problem. You know, if we were doing, the problem is we're returning something definite here, and humph. And I don't see any way, I think autocompletion for something this ornate is very hard to imagine. I mean, look, the right answer here is that we should have custom entities for this. The only question is how anybody could possibly type them in.
We can make them the default. I mean,
I don't think it would do much harm to make them the default, actually.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure.
Wouldn't you have
word in general is usually the, you know, the entity type of last resort.
Exactly.
So,
but can't you just click on that you know, the elision character and pick the other one?
Yeah, you can. But I'm just saying that. So look, what would it do in alpha itself if we did this? I mean, we might be able to do this. Can we set it to not do it in the raw alpha itself, but only to do it in control equals? Alan? Did we lose Alan?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question?
The question is, can we make it so that it will treat happiness as an emotion entity in control equals, but not in generic Wolfram alpha?
Yeah, easily.
Okay.
And
that's what
we can have things be parsed to a particular entity only in the language.
Okay, then that's what we should do, guys.
Okay.
Is there an interest on giving the possibility to write any function? Isn't it going to be always the same things we do?
In this case?
Yeah. Is it just filtering and then putting some end all the time, or?
No, but it could be, or it can be. I mean, I think it's crazy to try and have some kind of. I mean, your point is.
You know, it could be a list, you know, and gender arrows male, age. Oh, it's true. Age over 10. Okay.
Well, one could do that, but that's what we does in implicit entities, but it's still kind of a mess.
Mhm.
All right, I think what we should do, these should be, let's make the custom entities. Alan, if you can get the custom entities built.
If Etienne can give me the list of emotions that need to be recognized at first, then we'll get it in.
Okay, Etienne, can you do that?
They don't need to have any properties other than they need to work in control equals and they need to have a name.
I think that's it.
Is
Yep.
that enough for now? Great.
That is enough. And then in terms of genders, same deal. I don't know whether we should we have an other available?
Do you need one for this?
Not yet, but I'm just thinking that.
Find face won't
no, currently it won't. I mean, this is a typical example, right? People are getting all freaked out about sort of bias from machine learning training, right? And this is a great example of that.
I mean, the true thing is that we should call it sex, actually.
I am so naive about the politics and so on of this whole thing.
I'm not sure that's quite right, because that would be, thinking that you're going to recognize someone's
chromosomes.
Sex. Gender is more about how someone presents than or they choose to present, or
on the other hand,
sex is how the Census Bureau tracks data, not by gender.
Wait a minute, what does the Census Bureau track? Does it track by chromosome effectively?
Well, yeah. I mean, the data that they report is always, population by sex and race. It's not by gender and race.
Because it's considered to be a biological thing, right? Sex, while gender is.
It is. It's also self-reported, so they're not expecting people, but it's still meant to be
we are getting ourselves tangled up. What should we do? Look, gender is the only thing we are realistically going to be able to find from facial features.
I think that's right here.
I don't think we'll have data set with some other classes than male or female.
Not yet, except people will probably be pushing for that.
We can expand it, though.
What's that?
We can expand it, though.
Yeah, right. But I mean, okay, fine. So let's just put, right now, the entity type is gender, and the
But you also need those to work on their own in the language with control equals. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, we can do that.
And then with that discussion, should both classify and facial features return the gender entities as well?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right. I'm surprised somebody doesn't have a data set that involves other sort of, maybe they do, I don't know. Probably not big enough yet. Okay, I think that was everything we needed from Alan and Etienne. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
I'll touch base with it. Thanks.
Bye. Oh, whoops, we didn't solve the problem of this language locale thing, did we? We got talking about that. Oops. Do we still need to talk about this? What are we going to do here? You know what? We're going to need, I'm sorry, we need Alan back. If we're going to talk about this. Let's see if we can get him back. We're really late for something else, but I really would like to let's see. Okay, so what we need is a way to deal with, we're doing voice selection basically from a certain set. Look, I mean, my tendency would be to say, if we had a data set, what are we going to do here? I mean, okay. So
I like your idea that you said the list of association should go away, and at least the names should be a name of a list of flat strings or maybe associations down the road. I think short term we can make the dollar speech synthesis voices or rename it to something else, and that should be flat. I think if you scroll up, you have that list.
Which? This thing here.
That list, yeah.
Yeah, generic versus system, that's got to go away.
Okay.
The issue really.
I'm back.
Hi. We realize that we haven't sorted out this thing about what we're doing with, look, okay. Here's another argument. The argument is, okay, I have an idea. Why don't we make the names of the voices, which do not have to be particularly short, particularly not if they have autocompletion, be things like, English - British - female - Ellen.
And do we want to allow for Ellen itself to be recognized?
Why not?
I mean, do we want
to? If that's unique, why don't we recognize it? But if what we return, yeah, I think this is the right approach. If what we return in this list of dollar voice styles, okay.
But notice that we don't yet, or we may be able to get it for 11.3, but we don't yet have properties for all of these languages.
What do you mean?
Voices.
For voices.
You don't have the properties, but look, they're clearly here because they're in this file.
Yeah. But we have to implement them, right? In order for us to have it in the
or we just have a table. I mean, we probably could just have this table and just look it up from here if this is the list of voices. But then my idea would be to have the canonical voices that are returned here be either we can have Ellen - British English. Actually, it would be English - British.
British, yeah.
Something like that. Or alternatively, we could have that be a list of some kind. I think this is the only plausible way to do it because there's so many different bizarre variants that we could get into. Alan, do you have any comments about this from naming of things? I mean, if we did something like that, yeah, why not? Something like this. And just map those names, map the system names into this. Then we've at least got a fighting chance of being able to, even just visually, you can find the one you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in the future, maybe we have some much fancier scheme for, searching for voices with certain attributes. I think what we might have now within speech synthesize, we definitely would like to have a language option.
Yes.
And that language option should be able to take both regular Swedish and Island Swedish. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that was all we needed to, and Alan, we're going to get language locale cleaned up at some point.
Yeah.
This is one
of the things we're essentially waiting for. I mean, the primary thing we were waiting for was just the overall, language settings in the language accounting for locales. But John's group hasn't finished that up yet, so we were waiting to make sure that we had something that looked and behaved right before we push this out.
Okay.
This is good to know. There's something else that can make use of it. But your suggestion here is that the standard names are language : and then the kind of Unicode designation, or just
I think
that
so.
designation.
What do you think?
It doesn't matter that much to me. I guess I like the former better.
I think so. I think it's more
we could
elegant.
support just the code as an alternate standard name too.
Absolutely.
So that would work on its own, even if the thing that's displayed is
I think it's
language,
right. I think that works fine. That the default standard name is language : en_us, but en_us works as an alternate standard name.
Okay.
Okay, and then what we're doing here is we're not going for. So then we're not using en_us. We're using English:_British, English-British here, which I think is fine and better. So then we simply have to have a mapping to common names from these so that these guys can use it for these voices.
Should it be English-British or should it be English-Britain or Great Britain? Because that second element is actually a region, not a
okay, fine.
ish.
Right, so that ends up being United Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's fine. I think that's fine. I think that will work fine. Okay, is that okay with you?
In fact, in the other list, it's GB for Great Britain. Maybe that.
I don't think it is. Is it?
Yeah. en_GB.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Whatever that canonical is, because there's going to be a description somewhere of what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the description is, we just write out that long name. Which, by the way, might be the thing to do for the standard name, Alan, by default. Whatever that maps to, whatever its description maps to, whatever that en_GB, whatever that is said to be, that can be what that long name can be what the standard name is for en_GB. Did we lose you, Alan?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. I think we have to wrap up here. And I know that we have some, I think that's everything for Alan for sure. We have a small amount of additional material to go through, guys, here. When are we going to cover this? Because I am really late for another meeting. I think
we should try to do it as soon as possible. Shard is disappearing for
I know.
quite a while, so.
Do we have do you want to try for this evening, or do we want to? I know we have a meeting on the calendar for this evening, Roger. I don't know if we need it.
No, we could do this. This will be fine.
Shadi, will that work for you?
What time is it?
7:30 Central.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I will have some background noise, but yeah, I can be here.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, I'll see you guys. And for those watching us try and figure stuff out, we'll be back another time. See you.
Yeah, Stephen, we didn't finalize the $speech synthesis voices name. We can do that tonight, or if you don't want to go back to any of those.
No. Let's do that. I mean, I think we want to say. I think we should call it $voice styles. That's what I think, and we should call it $sound note styles and $voice styles.
Okay.
All right. See you all soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.